So when you're starting to break down the large universe of companies or stocks, individual stocks, there's a couple ways to do it, and one of the classic ways to do it is to look at what's called growth stocks and income stocks. And let's take a quick look at that and how it might relate to cryptocurrency or blockchain type of investing around that area, and what we might see more of, whether we're looking at more growth stocks or income stocks in this particular lesson. All right, so growth stocks, think of those as companies that are really growing at a faster rate, right? They're growing, they're growth stocks, and they're growing faster than the overall market. So if you look at the overall market, all the big basket of stocks and investments out there, they're growing at a faster rate than that. And what they do is they'll tend to devote a lot of their revenue or things and plow it back into the company, towards further expansion, expanding into new markets, expanding into new products or technologies, or also into research and development. So they're taking their growth and they're really focusing on how can we keep that fire burning, keep that company really growing and growing at that really hyper fast rate. If we look at, let's say, stocks that might be considered income stock companies, well, those are the ones that are typically paying dividends, maybe a higher dividend compared to the rest of the stocks out there. Many growth stocks don't pay a dividend at all. They're plowing all their income back into the growth of the company. An income stock might be paying out the revenue or profits back to us, the shareholders. We're the people who own the stock, and they'll do that in the form of dividends. A lot of times you see income stocks are these big blue chip or well-known established companies that aren't growing as fast. They might have stable earnings, some growth, and a solid financial outlook, and they're passing on that income back onto you. And they do that once again through dividends. So instead of reinvesting, let's say, new products or technologies, they'll do some of that, but they also want to make sure they give a portion of their profits back to us, the shareholders. And both companies are looking for what's the greatest return on their investment. Growth companies plowing it really primarily back on the company. Income companies might have a little bit of that, but also really paying back the shareholders. So another way to look at it too is growth stock companies. As investors, growth stock companies are focused on capital appreciation, or we're focused on capital appreciation. Basically, that means the stock price goes up. That's the capital appreciation. We buy low, if stock price goes up, we sell high, right? Investing 101. And usually there's no dividend with certainly a growth stock company. Income stock companies are focused on that regular dividend payout. And they want some stock appreciation. Sure, as investors, we always want some stock appreciation, but we're willing to forego some of that for regular payouts of dividends. And that's a key part, that they're regularly paying out dividends. If you've ever heard of a company missing a dividend payout or cutting their dividend, well, that's a terrible thing. That hurts us as a stockholder, but also it sends their stock price down too, because they're not fulfilling that promise of an income stock. So you got growth stocks, income stocks. So if we think about cryptocurrency and stocks that are oriented around cryptocurrency, the blockchain, that type of investments, which kind of companies do you think we see the most of? If you start thinking about like comparing it to the internet and all that, and with the blockchain, what kind of companies do you think we see the most of? And it's an interesting kind of mix of stocks. So let's take a look at that. Basically, you're going to see primarily stocks around growth, particularly technology, right? So we're talking about the blockchain. We're talking about new types of creative and new types of disruptive type markets. So we're really talking about growth companies primarily, particularly those around technology or selling services such as software as a service. In this case, it might be blockchain as a service. And those high growth companies that are seeing an opportunity, the blockchain, and investing heavily into that and trying to get ahead of the curve of everybody else and have a first mover advantage or start exploring some of these new technologies. So you might see a lot of that around growth. But the interesting thing also with the blockchain technologies is you might see some folks that are income oriented and they're investing in the blockchain. Remember, they don't have to be all passing it through. They'll also invest in their company too. Particularly, we see that with banking stocks or financial service stocks where, yeah, they pay a good dividend, maybe they're paying it for 30, 40, 50 years as far as a bank stock, and people rely on that dividend. That's why they invest in financial stocks, or particularly banking stocks. But banking is also particularly an area of growth of the blockchain, and certainly for cryptocurrency as far as playing in things like selling, buying and trading on exchanges and coins, but primarily also around transactions and transaction processing and using that distributed network in the banking sector. So it's an interesting mix where you'll see some things around technology, a lot of heavy emphasis around technology and opportunity for us to invest in technology stocks around the blockchain, but you can also mix up your investments and have a little bit of those income or banking stocks where you get a little blockchain too, but you might also be able to make it a little bit safer and get some of that regular income coming as well too. So it's an interesting mix between growth and income stocks, but primarily what we're talking about, what you'll see mostly around is around technology-driven and growth-type companies, but you can also take a look at income stocks. So with that said, the next little section we're going to talk a little bit just in general about investing in growth companies, things to look for in general, and the same thing with income companies in general, what to look for, and then we'll start narrowing it down by sectors and narrow it down by different types of investments that you can make. So as we kind of set this all up, we kind of go from big to smaller and narrower to help you as far as an investor and investing in this great and potentially booming type area.